ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Senior Prom. I'm your host, Stanley Dyrector. How do I describe our guest, Peggy Moran? Well, she's beautiful, vivacious, spirited, and one heck of an actress. Now, Peggy was part of the golden days of Hollywood, and she's going to talk about that and much more. We're also going to see some film clips and photos. Now, here's a rundown of some of Peggy's films. They're really fantastic. She was the leading lady to Roy Rogers in King of the Cowboys, to Gene Autry in Rhythm of the Saddle. Peggy was the lady flyer who starred in Flying Cadets. She was in Seven Sweethearts with Van Heflin. Early on in her career, she was in Ninotchka with Gobble. Peggy captivated audiences in Moonlight in Havana, Private Buckaroo, First Love, The Big Guy, and so many more. And for those of you familiar with cult movies, here's a real good one I want to tell you about. Peggy was in The Mummy. That's right, The Mummy's Hand. And I want to tell you about that movie. It was really unbelievable because Peggy had the spunkiness and vulnerability, and she was the daughter of Cecil Calloway in it. So what else can I say but I take pleasure in introducing my fantastic, gorgeous guest, Peggy Moran Koster.
How can I possibly live up to that? It was a very nice introduction, and I thank you. I'm very flattered.
Thank you, Peggy. I appreciate it, and praise will do you very well on this show.
Good.
But I want to talk about your career. Your career is an amazing career in that golden era.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I mean, you did so many films, and I want to start off, I'd say, to maybe show one film right now called One Night in the Tropics.
Yeah.
Right, that was an Abbott and Costello movie.
It was their first movie, right.
And you were...
Well, I was sort of the girlfriend of Bob Cummings. I mean, he didn't know it. He thought he wanted somebody else, but in the end of the picture, I convinced him that I am the one.
How could there be anybody else? And
there was a pretty good girl. The other girl was Nancy Kelly, and he thought he was in love with her, but I convinced him that he wasn't.
Well, let's see a little clip from that movie, One Night in the Tropics, with Miss Peggy Moran, starring. And when you're ready to roll.
I'm sorry, Miss Fitzgerald. Mr. Harper is out.
Well, I'll just come in and wait.
I'm sorry, I cannot allow you to come in. But please, Miss Fitzgerald.
Oh, darling, you want to play.
Ow! Oh!
You're just more than welcome. I can hardly wait until this evening.
Is that so?
Oh, hello, Mickey.
Phoning the big moment?
Oh, no, not at all. I was just talking to my laundry.
Oh, well, don't let me interrupt.
Hello.
But wait a minute, darling. I've got Aunt Kitty all soothed and ready to talk to you. Now, just a minute. Aunt Kitty!
Hello. I guess that'll be all for today. That'll take care of... Look.
No, Aunt Kitty is perfectly reconciled to our being married, and she'll soon love you just as much as I do.
No, please. Well, I don't think that today I'll have time to go over the list with you. Look, this thing can't go on forever, you know. Everything I've been sending out hasn't been coming back. Yeah, look. Fully 5 pairs of socks are missing, a dozen handkerchiefs, 3 towels.
5, 3, 12.
What are you counting for?
The man you're engaged to is a May 12th lunatic and a dangerous one at that. Scum!
Hello? Hello? Sort of hung up. Funny people, those laundries.
She has a very pretty voice, your laundry.
Yes, she has. How do you know?
A man who leads a double life shouldn't have 2 telephones.
Mickey, I got a lot of things to do today. Listen, I'm not leading a double life anymore. Well, I mean, it's double only in the sense that from Saturday on I won't be single. I'll be double. I mean, I'm going to get married.
Poor Stevie, always the dreamer. You will not be married on Saturday. Because I love you, and I'm going to keep on loving you until I don't love you any longer. And if you marry anybody, it'll be me, because if you don't marry me, you'll have too many broken legs to marry anybody else. So you can just get your laundry back on the phone and tell her she's all washed up.
Peggy,
Yes.
Peggy, I gotta tell you,
Yeah.
it holds up.
I'm glad you think so.
I think it's wonderful. Who was the other lady in the movie?
Nancy Kelly.
Nancy Kelly. Wow.
That's the one he thinks he's in love with. But as I told him, he's not going to marry anybody but me.
I don't blame him. I mean, you're such a beautiful lady and you're
I
a
know.
wonderful actor.
Come
No,
on.
I'm not giving you the
That was
brownie.
so many years ago, I'd forgotten I had ever done any picture.
Oh, Peggy.
Oh, really?
No.
Really?
Look, well, thank the Lord that we have television and that we have films
Yes.
that can.
If it weren't for television, I would never have remembered. But no, really, I wouldn't have.
Well, you've done so many films. And
yeah.
Unfortunately, all we have is a half hour on this show. So.
Well, and we can forget about them right now.
Well, no. We're going to talk about another film.
Uh-huh.
A film that is a cult classic.
Oh, I know which one that is.
Right, which one?
Well, I get letters about it all the time, The Mummy's Hand.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And I remember being carried around by this, I didn't even know who the actor was, because he always came in the set all made up. You know, he had to be wrapped around and everything.
Really?
And he couldn't talk. And so when the scenes where he comes and steals me out of bed and I have the satin nightgown, I was really afraid of him. And my screams were real in that, yeah.
Well, you know, in the clip that we're showing, we're not going to show you screaming, as a matter of fact, because anybody that wants to see you screaming can see you screaming. We are going to show a very cute scene with your two co-stars, Dick Foran and Wallace Ford.
Okay.
So when Mr. DeMille is ready in the control booth, we shall see The Mummy's Hand.
Are you Steve Banning?
Well, maybe.
Well, dispense with the fooling around, Mr. Banning. Hand over that money.
Money? Hey. Now, wait a minute. Little girls that play with guns is liable to get hurt.
I'll get hurt. Now, how about that money?
Hey, you do all right with that cannon, don't you?
I've been making my living with it since I was 7.
Oh, that must be the hotel people that heard the fireworks. I'll tell them.
Never mind them. You just give me back the money you stole from my father.
Your father?
Silvani, don't play innocent.
Oh, the guy you want to shoot. See, Steve Benning's right behind you.
Stop clowning. I've seen that show myself. I'm keeping you covered until I get that money back.
All right, if you don't believe me, but...
Listen, young lady. You seem to be laboring under the delusion that we stole that money from your father.
Well, of course you did. I'm no child nor credulous old man.
We're not crooks. We sincerely believe in what we're trying to do.
Well, then prove it by returning that money.
I can't. It's spent. Native diggers, supplies, equipment.
I know you're kind. You pretend to go on an expedition so you can get my father out in the desert to kill him or leave him to starve. That was the last cent we had.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought your father was a wealthy man. Otherwise, we'd never taken that money.
Yeah, we didn't even know he had a daughter.
Well, you know it now. And I'm going to see that he's not defrauded.
Defrauded? Listen, Miss Silvani. Dr. Petrie, an eminent archaeologist, will vouch for us. We intend to find that tomb and to share the proceeds equally with your father.
Well, just the same, you're not going to trap me into going on anything like that.
You? Hey, wait a minute. Who said you were going?
Well, I did. You don't think I'm going to let you get my father out there alone, do you? And you better not try to get away from here without us. When you leave, we'll be right with you every minute.
Peggy,
I look pretty tough there, don't I?
you're was so sweet and vulnerable and such a real person.
Well, you know how hard it was for me to shoot that gun without anticipating, without blinking? They had to do it over and over with me again. I really wasn't as calm and as cool as I looked there.
Well,
it was fun.
It shows your professional.
Oh, yes, right.
Well, you were wonderful. But also your father, who was locked up in the trunk, was Cecil Calloway.
That's right.
To give him some credit.
Yes, we have to give him credit for that.
Right.
It's hard to breathe in there, too.
I'm sure of it. But now I'm always curious about this. Did you always want to be an actress?
Yeah. Ever since I was 6 years old, I think. Did I ever tell you the time when my mother and a girlfriend wanted to go and hear Darius, who was the leading psychic of the day? I think he became famous in Hollywood because he predicted Rudolph Valentino's death.
Really?
And so they were dying to meet him and have him tell their fortune. Mm-hmm. And they went clear downtown and they took me with him, but they couldn't get in to see him. So they were standing out in the hall discussing it. He had too many appointments when suddenly Darius came walking out on the hallway, and he saw these ladies, and he evidently saw me, and he came up to me, and he put his hand under my chin and said, "Ah, an actress," and walked on. And my mother told me about that later, so I thought I was destined to be an actress. I thought I had to be. And I guess that's what gave me the faith that I was going to be an actress. I never worried about my future. I thought, well, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to grow up and be an actress.
And it happened.
Well, it happened, yes. And I got in right after high school. I went to John Marshall High School in L.A. And I'd never been anywhere near a studio, knew nobody in the studio. And so when I graduated from I guess I was in school, I was always being the lead in plays and everything. I just had such implicit faith in myself. And I had a wonderful mother who always made me feel that I could do anything. So why not be an actress?
A real support.
She wanted me to be a dancer, though, and she kept giving me dancing lessons because she was a frustrated dancer. And so I kept telling my mother, look, I don't want to be a dancer. I'm going to be an actress, I said. And she told me later that I even said, and I want to be in pictures, and I want to, later I want to marry a director.
Is that right?
I don't know. I don't remember that part, but my mother told it to me later, and it was a very funny thing.
This is all.
That's what I did, you know. I did. I gave up my career and became a director's wife. Yeah.
Mrs. Henry Koster.
Henry Koster, yes.
Right.
But anyway, I did get in because my mother was working on the jury once, and she and another lady had lunch with the judge.
Oh,
and she was talking about her daughter. I was still in high school, and she said that her daughter wants to go and be an actress, maybe go to New York. But I was looking for a singing teacher, and this judge, who happened to be Italian, just happened to say, "Well, I have an uncle who's a singing teacher. Why don't you bring your daughter out, and maybe I can introduce her to my uncle?" So I went out there one day, all dressed up like a candy stick. I don't remember. And so. Well, he evidently liked my looks.
Well, I don't blame him.
You're too nice to me. But anyway, it was sometime later that he called me and said that he had a coach, a talent scout from Universal Studio, and that he had made an arrangement for my mother and me to meet him. So we went out to the studio, and we met a Rufus Lemaire out there, and he said, well, if she can read lines, give her a test. And so I thought, well, my life is made. I'm just going to be, they're going to find out that what a terrific actress I am and make a star out of me. But it didn't happen that way. You
didn't become a star right away?
No way at all. And but anyway, so by the time I was ready to make a test, they had me coached by some woman out there. I think Madame Coppell was her name. And
they always had a Madame this or Madame that.
And I was scared to death of her because she told me how to say every line and this and that. But anyway, the test director came to me one day and he said, you know, Rufus Lemaire, he's the one that ordered the test, but he's not here anymore. He left the studio. He's going to coach George Arliss in London. And so he says, I don't really know what to do with you. He said, what the heck, the test is ordered, I might as well make it. Well, so we did make the test, but I never heard anything from it, you know, and so finally, I forgot now. Oh yes, we didn't hear anything, and I called the studio, and the studio said, yes, you made a test here, didn't you? I said, yes, could we see it? He said, oh yes, you go to projection room 2 this afternoon or something. And my mother and I went out there, and we saw the test. Well, on the test, since nobody really was, you know, interested in that test, the makeup man they gave me used to put all the wigs and the mustaches and all the cowboys out there, and he was the one to make me up.
Oh,
and
boy.
I can remember putting the lipstick on me, getting it, I don't know whether they got it up my face or if but anyway, when I saw the test, I looked like I look when I would get up in the morning with no makeup or anything, and to me that was not so good, you know, and I thought, oh my God, I don't photograph. And I went home and cried, and my mother threw herself on the bed by me and cried, and I said, well, I have to give up pictures. I just don't photograph.
Oh, Peggy.
Well, anyway, yes, I felt that way about it very much.
Well, you were very young and...
yeah, but I thought I looked awful in the test. So I was about ready to give up, but I had a boyfriend who was an artist, and he knew of an artist at Warner Brothers in the publicity department, and he gave him a letter of recommendation there, and so I went out and I met this young man, and he took me over to Salibiano, I think his name was, in the talent department.
Yeah.
And he just said, oh, I want you to meet Miss Moran. And then this publicity man left, and Salibiano looked at me, and he said, yes, what can I do for you, Miss Moran? I said, well, I'd like to be under contract here, I said. Well, he thought that was the funniest thing he ever heard. He threw his head back and he laughed, and I said, well, what's so funny? And he said, well, so would thousands of other girls like to be under contract. And I said, well, is that so impossible? And he thought for a minute. He said, well, I don't know, maybe not. So he said, come on, I'll introduce you. So he took me over, I think, to the talent department, I think it was, or the casting, I think, Steve Trilling.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, well, I'll play it up a little bit. I said, you know, I just made a test at Universal, but I'd much rather be here. They said, oh, you made a test? A slight interest started to trickle in, you know.
Right, their ears
or, you know, like this. And so they said, well, come on, we'll introduce you. And they took me upstairs to somebody, I think it was Max Arno or some executive, I don't remember.
Right.
And he said, yes, well, and I told him the same thing, that I made this test. He said, we'll send for your test then. I didn't know they could send for a test. And I told the secretary, well, do you want my name or something? And she said, oh yes, put it on the card over there. And I left, and I thought, oh my goodness, they're going to see that test, they're going to see that I don't photograph, and this is going to be a disaster. I really have to give up pictures. So I went out, and I was waiting for a bus, and a girl was there in a car with a man, and they were getting gas. It was at the gas station, I guess, where the bus stop was. And she came up to me and she said, are you waiting for a bus? I said, yes, I am. And she said, well, look, I just saw the bus go, she said, and we're going into Hollywood. How about we'll drive you in? I said, fine. And in those days, you didn't have to be afraid of anything, you know. And like strangers. She was a very pretty young girl. So I got in with him, and the man who was driving started looking. He said, were you just at Warner Brothers? I said, yes, I was. And he said, what were you doing there? So I quickly told him the whole story, you know, my story that I made a test at Universal and I photographed badly and now they want to send for it. I said, so I'm going to try to go to New York and become an actress or something, a real actress. And he said, well, what you need is an agent.
Oh, boy.
And he said, I happen to be an agent. So he said, you come in tomorrow and I'll sign you up. And I did. I went in and he signed me up, and the next day he said, Warner Brothers wants to see you. I thought, gee, this is a pretty good deal, getting an agent. He gets right back to Warner Brothers, that's fine. So I went back to them, and they were so nice to me. They bowed me in, and they said they saw the test and they liked it very much. And so I thought, well, gee, they might like somebody who looks very natural, no makeup, nothing. And anyway, they said, we want to make another test with you, and we want you to sign this option. If we pick up the option, you'll be under contract. And I did make the test, and they did pick up the option. But that wasn't exactly, my career didn't start then, but you asked how I got into pictures,
Right,
and that
right.
was it.
Yes, and I want us to continue on that. However, I want to show a couple of photographs of you, Peggy.
Okay.
And in some of the shows that you were in. And first of all, I love this photo over here. Can you guys see this? Let's see.
So,
We get a close-up. Let me go in like that. Oh yeah, you are such a flower, my dear. Let me get another photograph. Over here is another one of our little flower.
One Night in the Tropics, that was from.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. And let me show another one. Let me show this one over here, like this.
Abbott and Costello.
That was part of the film clip that we saw, only we didn't see Abbott and Costello.
No,
Right,
they didn't, but that's the one they started in. That was the picture
Right.
they started in.
And let me go again over here. Here's the still of Bob
Yeah.
Cummings.
Right,
Right.
right.
He was a
And
delightful
he was
guy.
a sweetheart to work with. We remained friends all our lives until he passed away.
Oh.
Very nice guy.
And let's see. And this is Gene.
Oh, that, yeah.
The fabulous Gene Autry.
Gene Autry. That was the first lead I ever did. I think that was before I signed later with Universal, where I worked mostly.
Let me do another one. I just want to show this is kind of
that-
cult. This is the cult. Mummy's Hand, and that is our fair maiden being held by
Yeah, yes, by
Mr. Tyler, I think his name
Tyler. I never knew him, though. Never met
is.
him.
Never met him. Let's see.
Oh, that's also the...
This is also
Mummy's
the Mummy's Hand. Right there. There's Peggy. And there's the mummy. Oh, well. And let me see. Oh, hey. History, folks.
Yeah, this is French Otone. You know, I was invited to Knoxville, Tennessee to become a guest star there. And nobody there knew who French Otone was. They take their cowboys straight.
Cowboy say. Here's it. Let's see. Oh, Johnny. Let's see. This is.
Johnny McBrown.
Right, see, I'm glad you told me. See, I forget my cowboys.
You're not supposed to forget names. I'm the one that does that.
Let me. And this is
Van Heflin.
Van Heflin.
I think
Let's see.
that was
Yeah.
Seven Sweethearts.
What a great actor he was.
Yeah.
And let's see. I'm doing the photo stuff here.
This is where I was the flyer.
Right. The lady cadet. And that's Frank Albertson, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Right. That was a wonderful film. And here's another shot of
Flying Cadets.
the Flying Cadets, right? Edmund Lowe and
Bill Gargan.
and
Frankie
Albertson.
Albertson.
Right. Peggy, you're so sweet. And let's see, right? Got a couple of more here.
Oh,
And this
that-
is
with my husband, and that was one of our anniversaries given by Sylvia Wu of Wu's Garden in Hollywood or in Santa Monica. And they used to give us our wedding anniversary party.
now I want to show this. This is very interesting. We're going to go on this. This gentleman here.
That's my father, and he was a well-known poster or calendar artist at one time.
Okay.
Peggy Moran.
Right. And here is what we're going to do with this. I want to show Mr. Moran,
And that is
and that is
Marilyn Monroe, used to be his model before she became a star.
But I want to show you his greatest creation. Your father's greatest creation is this. Let's have a look at this one. This is
Her heart belongs to Daddy, it says.
Peggy Moran. Isn't that a wonderful shot? That's really great. Really. And I want to show, I have a couple of more things to show. And this I want to show is
My husband, yeah. Well, he's the one that had me signed up at Universal.
right.
And the one that took me out of pictures. And when we married.
Well, enough with the photos because they're just brilliant. I want to talk more about you, Peggy. I want to know I mean, it's kind of like you were mystically bent to be in show business. I mean, with this prediction from Darius.
Well, I think it's really what you believe in yourself comes about. If you have enough faith in yourself, and I just thought I would be an actress. It couldn't fail.
But I also, there's a mystical aspect of you and your beloved husband, which you mentioned something about a...
Oh, helping him out? You mean because of religions or something?
No, about a dream or something like that? That
Well, when I started this picture, I knew I liked him, but I didn't know how much, and I did a bit in one of the Durbin pictures.
Diana Durbin, he was a big director for
Yeah, and
Diana
this picture
Durbin.
was called First Love, and it was supposed to be a sort of a modern Cinderella story, and when she's graduating from high school, they needed a lot of girls, and I was one of the girls, and that's when I met my husband. And he always noticed me and sort of teased me on the set, and it made me feel good. And I was a great admirer of his because I was a great admirer of the early Durbin pictures, Three Smart Girls and all that. So I was enraptured with the whole idea of being in that picture and being where the director was. And so I used to go after the picture was over, I mean, after the scene that I was in was over, he and Joe Pasternak had me signed up at Universal. And I'd go out and visit because I now belong to the studio. And one day I was getting ready to go out, and I told my mother, I said, you know, the funniest thing happened, I dreamed about Mr. Koster last night. And my mother said, oh, that's the reason you go out there all the time. And when I was driving to the studio, I thought, gee, that's funny. My mother thinks I'm interested in Mr. Koster in a different way. And I was a little embarrassed about it. I thought, well, I better not say that to Mr. Koster because he might take the same interpretation and I would really feel embarrassed. So I decided not to mention it to him.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, so then when I went out to the studio and I walked on the set and he saw me, and the first thing he did when he came up to me, he said, I dreamed about you last night. And somehow or another, I knew there's something going on between us. I felt we were soulmates.
This is like the ending of our show. Believe it or not, our half hour has practically vanished, has gone. Morte, fini. I can't believe it. I mean, it's been wonderful. I mean,
fun for me.
Perhaps we can have what we would call a reprise to further discover more about your career and things.
Well, let's hope so.
You know, but I want to thank you.
About it. Well,
I don't think any of us can forget about it.
No, but I was married for a long time, and I'd forgotten it was in pictures until television came in, and then I started getting fan letters, and they were telling me how much they liked this picture and that picture.